But a very warm welcome to this, our AESQ problem solving seminar. Today's topic is all around the 5 whys for 8D. We will be recording this. This is sponsored by the AESQ problem solving SMIG, and I'll come on to explain what that is in a second. Would you like to move on, Marnie?
Yes.
There we go. There we go. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce your presenters for today. So we have Marnie. Would you like to introduce yourself, Marnie?
Hi, I'm Marnie Ham. I work at GE Aerospace. I'm a consulting engineer in quality. I'm also the subject matter interest group team leader for problem solving, alternative inspection frequency, and the measurement system analysis. I am the deputy leader. I've spent about 25 plus years in quality in different industries, aerospace, automotive.
So an absolute wealth of experience from Marnie, as we have in the other SMIG members. My background is with Rolls-Royce, primarily in aerospace, some in marine, a little bit in our submarine sector as well. Been in the aerospace business now for 35 years plus, and thoroughly enjoying contributing to the problem solving team that are bringing you this WebEx webinar today. If you go to the next one, please, Marnie. We also have heavy support from Pete Tetty, who has helped prepare a lot of our materials. Unfortunately, Pete can't be here today. He has another corporate commitment that he couldn't get out of, basically. But he has been a very good supporter and has created a lot of the materials that you're going to benefit from today. But we do have on the line June Sakai, who is also one of our team members, who is from IHI, and he'll be supporting us today through the webinar should we have any questions or anything he likes to contribute as we move forward. Do you want to say hello, June?
Yeah, thank you for introducing me. I mainly work behind the scene, but I leave everything to you guys.
But he's there to keep us very right and correct. So thank you, June, for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So one thing I'd like to mention to you right up front here is to get the most out of today's webinar. We encourage you to print out the pre-read material that's been sent out. So if you haven't already done that, or you don't have it electronically to hand, now might be the time just to hit the print button and print out that pack. It's got some blanks in there that as we work through some of our 5 why examples, it would be useful for you to be able to just pencil them in as we go along. It'll make the webinar more valuable for you. So if you haven't already, please take the chance to do that. So in terms of today's webinar, we are recording it. We will have opportunity for question and answers. If you can all make sure you're on mute, which I think most of you are, you will be able to unmute yourself as we go through. But if you can also use the chat function as well. So we've got a chat function going, and one of us will keep an eye on chat. And if there's any questions, we will interrupt ourselves to tackle those from you as well. We do want to make it interactive. There's a little bit of introduction up front, and then we'll get into some of the interactive materials where we're really interested in hearing your views and opinions of how we do these 5 whys as we get into the examples. Okay, so the agenda. So we covered the welcome and introduction. I'm going to take you through a little bit of theory, and then we'll move into some case studies, 5 whys, do's and don'ts. We'll have a short break, and then we're going to cover some more case studies. And we've tried to pick a selection of case studies that are will hopefully be of interest to you, but will help demonstrate some of the do's and the don'ts that, if we can get these right, really helps us develop a good 5 why and help us establish the root cause of the problem. Okay. So first of all, if I can just cover a little bit about the purpose of the reference manual. So there is a manual, hopefully you're all familiar with it, RM 13 This has been created to support the requirements of AS 13100, Section 10, and it provides information on the use of problem-solving methodologies to satisfy the requirements of that standard. It includes a definition of what a problem is, and you can see that there for yourselves. A problem can be defined as a perceived gap between the existing state and a desired state, or a deviation from a norm, standard, or status quo. Okay. In this definition, the problem can represent an improvement opportunity when addressing the gap between the existing state and the desired state, or an issue when addressing a deviation from a norm or a standard. And I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the problems that we have. Sorry, switching my phone off. The reference material will primarily focus on managing problems associated with customer escapes using the 8D methodology. Oh, if someone can just go on mute, I think I can hear someone in the background. Pop yourself on mute. Yeah, thank you. There we go. So what is the problem-solving SMIG group? So who are we and what do we do? The problem-solving subject matter interest group, SMIG, has the following mission, and that's to assist in the development of knowledge and understanding of the AESQ supply chain, to apply and use consistent and standardised problem-solving methods. That's to help us all in our day jobs, tackling our supply bases in a consistent, standardised way. It's to mitigate recurring problems, and it's to achieve the goal of zero defects. So this absolutely supportive of that mission and goal. Our goal is to increase communication with the supply base, increase knowledge on the use of RM 31000 to solve problems, big or small. It includes standard templates. There's lots of really useful information in the document itself. It's got templates there for 2D, it's got 4D. Keeping the RM current as we move forward is really important for us as well. And suggestions from you guys as time goes on, please raise them and we will make sure we incorporate them into the standard to make sure that it stays current and very useful. And it's a sharing platform for lessons learned as well. So we go to the next one, Marnie. Who are we? So you can see the team is made up from right across industry. It's fantastic, really, when you think about it, that we've got people from all these different industries coming together. Marnie from GE, Jun-san from IHI, we've got Honeywell, members from Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney on here as well, several members there. Safran and GKN and MTU all involved. And if you are someone who would like to get involved with one of these going forward, you have to just put your hand up, drop a note in the chat, and we can come back to you separately on that too. Yeah. So as we're going to go through this WebEx, what we'd like you to understand is where you can go get help later as well. So there's some links in here. There's a QR code you can scan and access the document we're talking about. So just follow some of these links, make reference to them. You'll find there's just a ton of really useful information in there, all about problem solving, that hopefully will answer most of your questions, or alternatively, you can contact the SMIG as well. Okay, so if we move on. Right,
sure. I just wanted to mention the LinkedIn group.
Oh, yes.
We like to have lots of people in there. People post questions. It's an opportunity to answer other people in the industry and make connections throughout problem solving. So
yeah, feel free to drop some comments into the LinkedIn channel after this as well. That would be great. Okay, so if I take us through into just a little bit of theory, there won't be much of this, guys, because we do want to move you into the case studies, because I think it's through working on some of the case studies together that will help us really understand and learn how to do 5 Whys as simply as possible. But a little bit of background and why we've chosen 5 Whys for this webinar. It's worth pointing out that we did run a 8D webinar in May. And this is a follow on to that. That was on 8D overall, and this is on 5 Whys. So why the seminar? Well, the 5 Why diagram is commonly used as part of D4, as you all know. It's very popular because it's very much it's perceived as very easy to use, but the reality is it can actually be tricky So it can be tricky if you don't follow the do's and don'ts of the process. And if you confuse how to use the tool, it can actually become quite a frustrating tool. So one of the things we want to do is just share some of the do's and don'ts and help guide you on how to approach it so that you don't get any frustration and you get to your root cause quickly and efficiently. Just cover some of the common mistakes then around 5 whys. I mean, you guys will be very familiar with these, but using the first why by using up your first why by restating the problem in your first why, you don't need to do that. Not focusing on the 5 why and either direct or the detection root causes. It's important before you start the 5 why that you make sure you understand what you're trying to tackle and that you understand that you're trying to tackle the root cause of the problem or the detection root cause, which is around escape itself. If you blend those or confuse those, it gets hard to do your 5 why. Also, forcing a 5 why analysis to go down one serial path when actually you might need to branch and split. So quite often when you get to a difficult point in a 5 why, it's because you really need to split your 5 why into 2, sometimes even 3. And by doing that, it still keeps it simple, but it'll make it so much easier for you to actually run through your logic, and it'll all hang together a lot better. But other common mistakes are not understanding what the lead-in question is, and not positioning the first statement correctly so that you can then run your 5 whys off of it. So pitching that just right, and we'll show you some examples of that as we go in. Is really important. So again, these are really simple things, but it will help you do it quickly and efficiently. Not understanding the lead-in question for the detect root cause, which is how did the customer find the problem? And we didn't. So understanding on that escape element, how did it get out? How did the customer find it is really the first question. And then you ask why underneath it. And again, we'll give you some examples of that as we move forward. And then another really classic error here is not really using the 5 why therefore test. So when you do a 5 why and you run down it, it should be very possible to then read it in reverse and start from the bottom and say why therefore and work back up, and it all hang together. So if your logic hangs together, you know you've got a really good 5 why and you've got a good root cause. So some of the issues we're going to help you with as we move forward. This slide is really just a reminder to you all of what the AD process looks like. We're not going to dwell on it here. That was subject to a separate webinar, and it is all covered in the RM in huge detail as well. But the standard method for using the 8 disciplines, you can see on the left-hand side there, it has lists of key questions to ask, and it points your evidence to gather at each stage of the investigation. 5 whys is a tool which primarily comes into play around D4, identify and verify root cause. So when you get into D4, 5 whys is a great tool to use to help you make sure that you've got your root cause, your detection root cause, as well as understanding all the other root causes, and we'll cover those shortly. So all of these tools are available in the RM 13000. 5 why is one of our key tools for D4, and it will help us identify root cause. And that's why we're covering it today. Okay. So we're going to move into a case study. I did promise we'd move into this fairly quickly. So if I pass over to yourself, Marnie?
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Lovely.
All right. This is the first case study, and I'll read through it, and then we're going to talk through it and solve it together. So here's the situation. The Jefferson Memorial, which is a monument in Washington, D.C. in the U.S., it's in neoclassic style and situated on the West Pontomac Park on the shore of the Pontomac River. A few years ago, the national park managers noticed the memorial was crumbling at an alarming rate. So we can even see in the pictures there that they are repairing it. When asked why, they found out it was being washed more often than other memorials. So I'll show a map in a minute showing all these different memorials that happen in the same area. For most organizations, the analysis would stop there. The solution is clear, right? adjust the cleaning schedule to match those of the other memorials. Well, unfortunately, that situation only led to the Jefferson Memorial, getting more dirty because the park managers asked about the reason why they were washing it frequently. They found it had an exceptionally large amount of bird droppings deposited on it every day. What's the solution now? Should we erect some scarecrows, declare open season on the pigeons? What's next? Well, luckily, the park managers kept inquiring, and when they asked why the bird droppings were occurring at higher rates on the Jefferson Memorial than on the Lincoln Memorial or others, they discovered that the Jefferson's Memorial, harbored on an large population of spiders upon which the birds were feeding. And the population of spiders was due to a large number of midges. They're a very small insect that live in the water but fly. And those were around the memorial. When the park managers asked why so many midges congregate on the Jefferson Memorial, it was found that midges emerge from the water to mate when there's a very unique type of light. It just so happened park managers were inadvertently creating this unique light, the brightness, quality of it, by turning on the memorial lights just before dusk. This one variable caused the whole chain of events to happen. Lots of midges, then lots of spiders, lots of birds dropping, lots of effort to keep it clean, and finally, the crumbling statue. For those people, including myself, who could not picture this because I'm not from the US, I was looking at a map. So these are all the monuments and memorials that are in the national park and managed by the same people. And we can see the Jefferson Memorial here. And I even managed to find a picture of it at dusk where you can see it's reflecting off, or just before, because the lights aren't on from the looks of it there, but you can see it reflecting on the water. Whereas the other memorials are farther off the water in most cases, or different. Like here, the Franklin Roosevelt Memorial is very close to the water too, but it's different. But we can see a lot of the other ones. Here's another neoclassic similar material, that it's a lot farther from water. So 5 why. Why are we looking at the 5 why? It's a good questioning technique for getting beyond symptoms and uncovering the true root cause. So we use 5 why analysis to identify the root cause that solution can then be built on. So use the 5 why to determine 3 different types of things we want to work on: the direct cause, the detection cause, and the systemic cause of the problems. And we're going to show you slides that can help you lead through those questions as we go. 5 why is a common tool. It's taught many times. The more you use it, the better you get at it. So 5 why analysis is most commonly used to identify the root cause of the problem. It's typically used after a fishbone diagram, and we can even see sometimes on the fishbone diagram, we might even try to do the 5 whys right on it. So it's a good brainstorming tool. It gets people talking. It helps with that. We can also use the nominal group technique, like a Pareto, to help us filter the inputs to determine which causal factors are required for further investigation. So you may use some other nominal group technique, like voting if you have a large group, or something like that, to get to a point where you want to figure out what you want to investigate further. At this point, the 5 why analysis, or a 3-legged 5 why tool, is used to drill into the causal factors to determine the root cause versus noise or symptoms of the problem. So again, common technique. I think I first learned it in Six Sigma, and it was off the fishbone. Just keep asking the question, why, till you couldn't answer why any further. So we can drill down that way. Now, when I learned this technique originally, it was focused just on the direct cause. And as we've matured with using 5Y, we realized we should be looking at multiple ways. One, the direct cause, or the generation point is another term for it, where we break down why did this defect occur. And that's the first leg of the 5Y if you're using the three-legged 5Y or the 3x5Y. The systematic or system level causes is where we ask questions about the quality management system, overall policies, procedures, or standards out there to ask questions as to how did the system fail us that allowed the first problem or the direct cause to happen in the first place. Things like inadequate design, inadequate processes, inadequate resources, lack of documentation, those all fall under that systemic or system level cause. So if you're talking 3x5Y, it's the third leg of the Y. So here's some examples switching between the direct cause or generation point cause and the systemic or system level cause. So we have a machine vibration at the direct level. Well, that could be due to lack of a preventative maintenance program. A part mislocated in the fixture, the systemic would be we didn't use mistake proofing in our fixture design. So I'm not going to step through each one of them, and I see they're shifted on the right a little bit. We'll fix that before we repost this. But you can go from one to the other. I'm going to mention one of them because it might come up in a case study. Parts packaged without the FOD, right? Or packaged with FOD, packaged with FOD as they're sent to the customer, maybe no FOD control program. So system level or systemic causes are also root causes. So we have to fix the problem that directly created the problem, plus the issue at the system level that allowed the failure to occur, because there may be more problems if we don't fix the systematic level. As part of this in our package, and we will post these templates separately on our AESQ site, we have 3 different legs. So we have, and we separated them out on 3 separate pieces of paper to give lots of space for people to put information when you're typing it up or rating it up. We have a generation point or direct cause leg. So this could be the manufacturing process, however the defect was created. Generation point. Then we have a detection leg. So this is how we failed to see the defect or measure it, or we didn't inspect for it, right? How did we not find it at the source and we found it downstream at the customer or a later customer? The fifth or the third leg is that systemic one. So you'll see they all look a little different, right? They're labeled differently. And what you can't see on this slide is the very first question at the top changes depending on which leg you're going to. The other we've shown about where you should start switching over, thinking about that why, possibly part of a systemic problem. So you can jump your systemic off from either a generation point or detection problem. But that's that system failure. What happened in the system that allowed the defect to occur and or the defect to not be detected? And then this is just a blown up version of those so that you have those to see. So this is the direct cause or generation point. What is happening that shouldn't be at the process that caused the defect to occur? So the idea is not necessarily to state the problem over again, right? So if I refer to the first one for Jefferson Memorial, our problem isn't the deterioration of the monument. Our first one might be the wash. And then as Sharon mentioned, we want to make sure we do that therefore test on each of these. So whether it's the generation point or detection, you're always going to go backwards. So we can start at the bottom and say, if this happens, therefore this can happen. Then this can happen. So we're testing our logic to make sure that if we fix the one at the bottom, then the top can't happen, right? And we also want to make sure we're testing that. If we fix this issue, we don't get that cascade effect, and we actually run a test. So detection, what got out to the customer that was not caught in our internal process, right? Our escape point. So why did it occur? The last leg, the system failed. What in the system failed, allowing the defect to occur. So this Y is the baseline from the generation point, right? So we can find it on that. Hopefully we'll see it or why it happened. So we're going to spend a few minutes going through the Jefferson Memorial. So we're going to try to complete the 5 why for generation point, detection, systemic as we go through. So because I've talked a little bit of theory, I'm going to go back a little. We're going to look at this and let's start talking through together. So you can unmute as you're adding comment. I'm going to go back. I like to highlight, so I'm going to do that. So let's look at what is our first why.
So if you guys can just shout out at this point, or I think that's the best thing. Just
Yes.
if someone's brave enough to be our first.
Why is the memorial crumbling at this alarming rate?
So why is the memorial crumbling? Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. So remember, we don't want to restate our problem in our first why. So that's our problem, right? Here's our problem. Crumbling at an alarming rate. So what would be the first why to that? Why are we crumbling?
Why are they washing the memorial so often?
Yes. There we go. Why one? All right. So we're washing too often. Why are we washing too often?
Because of the birds?
Yes. Good. So why do we have so many birds?
Because of the spiders.
Yeah, it is starting to sound like a nursery rhyme, this, isn't it? But it's not. It's just an actual case study. But it's very like the nursery rhyme, yeah.
Yes. All right, next one. What's our fourth why? Why do we have so many spiders?
Yes.
Midges, yes. All right, why do we have so many midges?
Right.
Because of the light?
Yep. All right. So we've got our 5 why plotted out. Now I'm going to move over to the form. So again, we're not going to state our problem again. I sometimes will write it up here just so I don't forget. Crumbling memorial. Right? And then we said too frequent washings. And why did we have that? Right? We found that was the bird droppings. Right, which is also too many birds. And why did we have too many birds?
Spiders.
And why too many spiders?
Midges.
And why the midges?
Light.
And why did we have light problems? I think I missed, did I miss one? Oh,
Oh, no.
I know why. Okay. My problem again. Okay. And then, so lights on at dusk. Now, I think I forgot to put in the detection. Why do we think they failed to notice? I guess I didn't do that. Let's do the therefore. So if we get rid of the lights on at dusk, therefore we eliminate the light issue. Therefore, there's no more midges. If there's no midges to be eaten, there won't be spiders. If there's no spiders to eat, will the birds be there? Should see a reduction. And then eliminating the washings. So if this was our process, we could look at what is that frequency of washing, and then can we turn off the lights and see if we see a difference, right? There's your nice experiment. If we don't turn on the lights at night, will we see all these cascade effects? So we would want to test that. Why do we think they failed to detect this?
Because they had no washing plan.
Because nobody take a look at the desk of the monument.
I like that one, right? Why did we not catch the midges, right? So we want to get it lower down. So it could be midges or spiders, right? So no one was there at dusk. So if we take this one now, is there anything beyond there's no one there at dusk? I don't know that we can go. Can we go deeper?
No evening shift.
No night shift? Okay.
There is one other factor, guys,
Yep.
that you might notice in the description to do with lights.
At sometimes where it's cloudy, the lightning is different. In the cloudy evenings.
Right?
It's possible, isn't it?
So one thing we want to watch for is what can we control? So we can't control the nights it's going to be cloudy or not cloudy. We might want to note that's an issue to learn from it. So So if I scroll back real quick to the
Yeah.
case study.
Why didn't they detect that they had to clean that more often? This is what the question would be for me.
Okay.
I mean, if there is a plan and the other memorials have also a plan, then I could have detected that I have to wash this more often. So I could have detected if I had a plan.
Okay. So that you're right. That would be right. No washing plan. So that would be a different solution through it. Why was it not detected, right? There was no measure. Plan versus actual. So this would not be two legs, but two possible detection points that you're flowing through. I think Sharon saw something else on the midges. Is that true?
I think if I'm just offering here, there was a piece about the lights themselves. So why did they not see the midges? And you then said no one was there at dusk. So why was no one there at dusk? And yes, there was no night shift, but I think, I was also looking for how were the lights switched on and off?
Okay.
And if the lights were automatic, then nobody would actually spot it. And I think that comes out in some of the additional material that the lights were automatic here.
Yes. And I think that in some respect, both the no night shift and the automatic lights could lead us down that system failure.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
The system failed to detect what was happening. Why? Automatic lights. Now, I think Sharon and I the other day were discussing there was possibly one other one. As much as this followed a 5Y, it took a long time before they did it. Did they fail to detect it? Or after they detected it, was there a problem? Right? It was a slow solution. So it might be they were not trained in problem solving. So automatic lights, why they had no verification test.
Yeah, and it just wasn't anticipated, wasn't part of their risk assessment up front, was it? And you can see parallels with things that we do in business all the time where things are missed off a risk assessment, and that drives your systemic failure quite often.
Yep.
I am from that area, and midges bite, so they may have come up with automatic lights because no one wanted to go out there and turn them on. So while they may have solved, yeah, midges bite.
Yeah, the Scottish ones really bite. I can tell you, they eat you alive. But yeah.
Okay, so interesting. Midges bite, right?
But in solving one problem, they may have created another.
Right.
Yeah, as often is the case.
So they were trying to prevent injury. Interesting.
I mean, they may have also wanted it to look a certain way at dusk. The lights look prettier than yeah.
So then I would put the risk down here, right? Risk to memorial versus people. It definitely takes you down a different road sometimes as you ask the questions, right? And that's why we need a group doing these things. 5Y is not done independently or by one person.
Mm.
All right. So, what did we learn from this? Right? Learning points from this is it was not just about washing the memorial. Turning the lights on at the right time was necessary to remove the root cause, because just changing the washing schedule would ended up with the dirty memorial, because the case study early on talks about that. Don't waste that first Y by restating the problem, right? So I put it above so that I had the space for 5 Ys within it. Don't stop at 5Y if you haven't arrived at something to control. We came up with the 5th Y. Yes, this is a case study that was meant to show you to get to there, right? To 5. We got to the solution, the lighting or the timing of the lights, because we could have come up with that plan. Here, lights on at dusk. Well, how would you experiment that? Do you want it after dusk? Do you want it, come on a certain period after? We in the aerospace industry are not going to be experts on midges to try and resolve that. There may be another experiment. Maybe it's put bat boxes out so the midges get eaten by something else, but then you might end up with more problems. So turning the lights on at the right time is necessary, but it may not be enough. We'd have to study it more. All right, I'm going to pass this back to Sharon to do the 5Y do's and don'ts.
Okay, so hopefully that was a useful example for you. We're going to have cover a couple more, but just before we do that, touching again on a little bit about the history of 5Ys and the do's and don'ts. So, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with its history, and it was developed by Sakishi Toyoda, who's founder of the Toyota Motor Company, and Taichi Ono made it part of the current Toyota production system, the TPS, which, if you're from a quality background, I'm sure you'll have heard of. And as we know, every young child, every 3-year-old asks lots of whys, and it's very effective. It wears you down as well, but it's super effective at getting to the root cause of a problem. 5 Ys, if you have 5 Ys, it means you've got 5 causes. Basically, each of the Ys has a cause beside it. If you have 2 Ys, you have 2. And as Marnie says, you don't have to have 5, but you usually have to ask it that many times to make sure you've exhausted possibilities. And some will go on to 8, some will go on to much deeper than that. 5 Ys are a great way to get cause and effect going, and it's basically a scientific method. Just as Marnie was showing you there, you can go through and develop your logic for your 5 Ys and then test it, and then you can test what you can do in terms of corrective action. You can do, come up with your proposed root cause, and then come up with a plan to how you can test that or implement it, and then monitor it to see whether you've actually hit the right one. And if you haven't, you can come back and adjust it a little bit, just as we were showing you with the midges problem. The goal is not to get 5 Ys. The goal is really to lower the risk. It's to make sure that lowering the risk in our business is a priority. It's not actually about getting to root cause, although that is important. The most important thing is to lower risk. So if you go through one, and sometimes you get very complex problems and you won't end up at a satisfactory root cause, you've got to satisfy yourself that whatever you have got is lowering the risk, and that you can make a clear correlation between what you're suggesting is a fix and how that reduces risk of the particular problem that you've got. Okay, go to the next one, please. Oops. Thank you, Marnie. So Do not write cause and effect in one 5Y level. Don't blend them together. And one of the biggest problems I think you see in 5Ys, and I've done it myself where I've got through one, partway through, I've got to like step 3 of one and find it really, I've really confused myself. Where you find yourself confused, it means typically you've blended your top line, you put too many things into it and you need to just pull it apart and strip it out and make sure that you have one question at the top that allows you to answer one set of questions, and you might need another, and you might even need another. And of course, these things can branch as well. So you might get down to about your third step and realize that there's maybe multiple causes of whatever your third cause is on your 5Ys, in which case it's absolutely fine and very useful to branch it at that point and branch out, just as Marnie sort of showed you branching out a little bit. You can draw a line down the chart, or you can do 2 separate charts. But it's important to do that because it's the logic, critical thinking and your logic that you're trying to detangle so that it's easy. If your critical thinking and your logic is all mixed up, you'll find you get stuck in your 5Ys. So it's a good tip if you find yourself partway through one and struggling, just go back and question, have you asked the right top question? Simplify that out, and then you'll find it so much easier. So other top tips, don't fill them out in full sentences. Marnie showed you a way, just shorthand the thing. Don't overcomplicate it, just shorthand it. And don't think there is only one cause path, you can have multiples. Another top tip here is don't mix your timeline up with causality. So the when something happened with why it happened, because sometimes you'll need a timeline for an investigation, walking it through, this happened, then this on this date, then that, then this. It doesn't always flow with your whys, so try and split that out. Okay, Marnie? So things that are useful to do is do ask the question multiple times, and it generally takes 3 to 5 times to satisfy yourself you've exhausted a 5Y. Do utilise that therefore test that we showed you as well. Work up from your last Y and make sure your logic still holds if you work it up backwards. Do write the causes in the boxes. And do start keeping the cause and effect chain as simple as possible. Keep it easy to read so the logic works. If you write big long sentences, you kind of trip over it, so keep it really simple and short. Doing 5Ys is really the start of analysis, and sometimes you'll get through 5Ys and you'll realise you haven't got enough information, and that's okay, because it will tell you then that you need to stop and go and ask some more questions, go do a deeper investigation, or go ask for more information. It's a useful tool. It'll get you to a point, and then you need to go get more data to allow you to continue. Do write potential solutions right on the diagram at various levels as you think about them. It's helpful when you're brainstorming something through and you're working it through and you think of a solution, just scribble it on so you've captured it, because as you're working through your logic, you might forget it later. So just capture it sort of freehand on your diagram. Do feel free to use a causal factor map to help you with your 5Y analysis, to help you show multiple causes as well. So there's other tools you can use in conjunction with 5Ys. Thank you, Marnie.
I'll just mention one thing. Some of those, like the causal factor map, we have one in our AD toolkit to download.
Thank you. And then just to share with you, from my experience, and so from a Rolls-Royce experience, GE experience, and Pratt & Whitney experience, and IHI have all fed into this. And these are the sort of typical things that we see that go wrong with them when they're presented. People often stop at the symptom and don't actually get to the root cause. So just make sure you're working through all your whys. The experience we just, I think, shared there was none of us are experts here on midges. So actually, if you're doing a 5Y on a subject that's outside of our knowledge, make sure that you've brought in someone, or at least run your 5Ys by an expert so that they can help you identify, there may well be a consideration that just won't appear in your head because you've not got that knowledge. So make sure you have a team. And I think the advice is 5Ys as a team event is really important. one person can certainly have a go at creating it, starting it off, and then run it by people, because that will be your quickest way of figuring out if it works or not. Not asking the correct why questions. So again, it's just this logical flow down of your questions. Don't jump off into complex thinking. It's just, why, if that happened, why did it happen? And keep just doing it. Is really simple in terms of approach, but harder to do because as humans, we try and complicate things. Keep it simple. We've got a tendency to isolate to a single root cause, ignoring other possible causes. We may jump on our pet theory or the one that seems most obvious. Be aware that life's not simple, as we all know, and you can have multiple things causing a problem. And if you just tackle, much like the Jefferson example, if you just tackle the pigeons in that example, you'll miss the other problems, the other root causes that are there that really need tackling, otherwise it's going to reoccur. They can split and branch. And again, that works fine as long as you recognize it as you're working down your 5 whys, and you get to a point where you have 2 causes, split it into 2 separate 5 whys that can come down and then split. And that's the easiest way of keeping your logic straight and helping you not get tangled in a 5 why, as I'm sure many of you, certainly I've had experience of getting tangled in them myself. And as Marnie said, the causal factor map, which is in the RM material, there's examples there for you, can help you shape it as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to another case study. This is a simpler one. And Marnie, are you going to open this one?
Yes, I'll start this one. All right. So here's our case study. There's spilled oil on the floor. The plant manager walks into the plant and found oil on the floor. He calls the foreman over and told him to have maintenance clean up the oil. The next day, the plant manager was in the same area of the plant and he found oil on the floor again. He subsequently raked or yelled at the foreman over the coals for not following his directions from the day before. His parting words were either you get the oil cleaned up or he'd find someone who would. All right. So, what's our problem?
Oil on the floor.
Yep. What's our first why?
Why do we need maintenance to clean up the oil?
Okay. Do we have a second why?
Yeah, why is oil on the floor?
Okay. Do we go any deeper than why is it on the floor?
Why did he come back the next day after
Okay.
it was clean?
Why was it? Yeah.
Okay. Found on the floor again. Did we get any farther than that? So this is why 2. Or we could call, I guess, the problem or the first why could be this one. I guess we could do it this way. And then 3. This is both the problem and the first why. All right. Any others? Do we go any deeper than this?
Are we sure the oil got cleaned up the first time?
Good question. We don't know. Okay. We don't know. Definitely the plant manager didn't think so. So that would be a good question to ask, right? Was it cleaned up?
And my second one is not really a why, it's a where. Is where is the oil coming from? If you can identify the source, then you might be on the route to fixing the problem.
Good. Let me get that where. Might. I'm gonna try to squeeze that in. Those are questions we don't know the answer to, right? But oops, sorry, misspelling. Next, some space. Day. So I think we have these questions we want to go investigate, right? Why was it actually cleaned up by maintenance? And where's it from? So this one, we can't really go any farther. I am going to ask, does it feel like there's a systemic failure here? To start that question.
Depends whether it's cleaned up on the
Okay.
first day.
Okay.
So the system of ensuring the cleanup of the spill is probably a failure in itself, because whoever discovered it shouldn't walk by it and simply expect somebody else to clean it up. But that's an aside. The understanding that someone was tasked with it, you've got to get confirmation that it was carried out or not before you can understand whether it's a repeat or just the same issue that wasn't cleaned up in the first place. If it's a repeat, then you've got some kind of, like you suggest, a systemic failure. But until you understand whether or not it's a repeat, where can you go?
Yep.
Yeah. Spot on.
I'm going to put those both right here. Is those are questions to ask, right? Was it a repeat? Or was it cleaned up? Because even if it wasn't cleaned up, oil on the floor could be a safety issue, right? So there's, other than the confirmation, there's probably a failure there as to why someone didn't do it, right? So I think you've got that confirmation of was it done, and if not, why? That you could ask. And then, was it a repeat? Let's assume yes. So if it was a repeat, what's the failure? Because I think you guys were hinting at it, at least the way I look at this here.
A leak.
Right. So did we follow 5? Did we actually ask why?
You could say where. You don't know if it's a leak or a spill.
Right. Correct. No ask why or where. So I think the system somewhat is failing in the fact that they're not asking why. Like we saw in that Jefferson, right? We made sure that we had laid out multiple whys for you to follow the story. So if we get or see the concept that it's cleaned up, then it's there the next day. Is it a repeat is one way to answer it, or was it cleaned up? Those are both ways to look through this, but making sure that we have that way to try to solve it. All right.
I think there's one more as to when. You know, you could
Yep.
like, does it happen during a? Okay, thank you.
I like that too, right? No ask a why, where, when. So what are suggestions that the plant manager could have done, right? How could he address the oil on the floor? So I heard one suggested earlier on, clean it up himself. Any others?
investigate where it came from?
In line with that investigation, if it is a leak from a machine, you might want to be checking that the levels in the machine are adequate to ensure it's continued running, because you might have a reliability issue if the oil is leaking from a machine and its oil level is now low. So you could prevent a potential catastrophic failure if this oil leak is critical. Yeah.
Yep. Good one. Do we see any opportunities to use any of the tools we're discussing?
There's also maybe some kind of catch, or if it is a leak and not just a spillage, you might want to be putting a catch tray and warning notices, etc. But that's kind of like a retrospective action. You really want to be attacking the issue at source rather than putting a temporary fix in place. But it's something that would be sensible to do in the kind of environment that we work in. Yeah, health and safety and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Fishbone.
Okay.
Cause and effect diagram would be a tool to use.
Yep. Okay. So some quick checklist. I'm not going to walk through it, but just, this is a good checklist to use to make sure you're finding what you're looking for. Make sure the root cause is controllable. That'd be a question I'd ask on the one we just did. Did we find the root cause that's controllable at this point? Another one that I like, and this is just because a VP was was talking recently to me that he had never done 5Y correctly. He just learned how to do it correctly, and this is where he hit on it. Is he'd never done the 5Y where he checked to see if he could turn the problem on and off, right? By turning on and off the cause. And that really stuck with me, partly because it was just 2 days before this. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Sharon. She's going to continue the oil on the floor.
Yeah, so I think there's a really good example of you can attempt a 5Y, but you really need enough information to allow you to do it. And you were all quite right in suggesting that you really need more information to allow you that 5Y to move forward. So if we provide a little bit more information now on this particular case. So the plant manager has now walked into the plant and he's found oil on the floor. He called the foreman over and he asked, why is the oil on the floor? The foreman now indicates it was due to a leaky gasket in the pipe joint above. The plant manager then asked when the gasket had been replaced. The foreman responded that the maintenance had installed 4 gaskets over the past few weeks, and each one seemed to leak. The foreman also indicated that the maintenance team had been talking to purchasing about the gaskets because it seemed that they were all bad. The plant manager then went to talk with purchasing about the situation with the gaskets. The purchasing manager indicates that they had in fact received a bad batch of gaskets from the supplier. He also indicated that they'd been trying for the past 2 months to try to get the supplier to make a good batch, to make good on the last order of 5,000 gaskets that they've got around about them that all seem to be bad. The plant manager then asked the purchasing manager why they'd purchased from this supplier in the first place, if they were so disreputable. And the purchasing manager said because they were the lowest bidder when quotes were received from various suppliers. The plant manager then asked the purchasing manager why they went with the lowest bidder, and he indicated that this was the direction he had received from the VP of Finance. So the plant manager then goes off to talk to the VP of Finance, and when the plant manager asked the VP of Finance about it, he's told, when he asks why are purchasing buying from this supplier, and why are we directing them to always take the lowest bid? The VP of Finance said, because you indicated that we had to be cost conscious as possible. So, and that they were taking the directive of being as cost conscious as possible, basically determined the need to go for the lowest bidder. Okay, and it was with a view of saving some money. I'm sure there's no bells ringing anywhere from you guys. The plant manager was horrified when he realised that he was the reason there was oil on the floor. So bingo in terms of that one. So if we can walk through a 5Y on the generation or root cause of this one, I think there's enough information now to start to make a better 5Y than the one we had before. Marnie, do you want to maybe just highlight some things on the?
I sure will.
Should we do that? Guys, do you want to? Yeah, so that's the first thing. So that in terms of what is happening that shouldn't, well, we found oil in the floor. What do you think is the first root cause then from what the information we've now all received? Please just shout out, guys. We found oil in the floor. Why have we found oil in the floor?
Leaky gasket.
Leaky gasket. Yeah, someone's put in chat. Leaky gasket. So why have we got a leaky gasket?
The company's reducing costs by going for the cheaper quote.
Oh, I've just had a message pop up in chat. I don't know if the sound keeps cutting in and out for folks. I'll turn my camera off if that helps. Are people having trouble with sound?
I'm hearing you fine.
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine too.
Okay, it might just be a local bandwidth thing then. But okay, so we've got a problem. Found oil on the floor. We've asked the first why. Why is that then? Well, we've got a leaky gasket. So why have we got a leaky gasket? What's the next piece of information that we can draw out from all of this? We've got a leaky gasket.
Bad batch.
Bad batch of gasket.
Yeah, we've got bad gaskets basically, haven't we? No, it turns out it's not just one. We've got probably 5,000 of the things. If we're unlucky, they're all bad. So now we've established we've got a bad batch of gaskets, which is a bit worrying. Why have we got this bad batch of gaskets? What's happened?
So, yes, from the information is because they chose the lowest supplier, but putting my maintenance hat on, I would want to know why the maintenance continued to use the bad gaskets when it's been proven that they were ineffective.
Yeah.
So just to chuck another why in there, after 2 or 3 leaks, I would have, as an ex-fitter myself, I would have stopped using the gaskets rather than continuing to use what was proven to be ineffective.
And it's a really good point, Bill. That is because what I would suggest we do though is capture that. No, it is a really good point, and it's one of these that when it comes to thinking about systemic, when we do the 5 whys on systemic, or even the escape, I think that's one that we should not lose sight of. So we can make a note to say what we want to capture. Why did maintenance not detect this? Because that's sort of a detection why, isn't it? But if we stick to and this it helps illustrate keeping these simple, is that this one's about the root cause of the problem. So we just keep on the logic tree.
It's another work stream, but yes, it's
but it's a really good one, and it's easily missed as well, because if you solve this one without solving the other one, we've probably it's going to happen again, isn't it? So So why did we get bad batch of gaskets? Well, I think the answer that came out was it was this policy of using the cheapest supplier. So we were using the lowest bidder. without thought for quality at that point. So we've just gone for the lowest bidder and haven't really made any consideration for the quality of the product.
Then maybe if I can just say
Yeah,
something,
go for it.
maybe they would go for a goods in as well, because when you have any new parts from a supplier, they need to go through the quality first. So it could be catched there as well.
Yeah, and when we come on to the detection one of why didn't we, so this is why did it happen, and then the next one's about why did it happen, and why didn't we find it? Why didn't we see it happening? The detection root cause, absolutely, and we'll come on to why didn't we see it? Why didn't we spot this happening before it became a problem? So no, that's really good. And in terms of why did they go for the low cost option? What was there's another why, I think, still. So we've gone for the lowest bidder, but why did we go for the lowest bidder? I think Marnie's hovering over it.
I hit my pen. Yes, I was hovering over it. And like, well, I'm gonna hide it.
Because the plant manager said to do so.
Yeah, basically, and the culture of being cost conscious was perhaps translated into the lowest bidder. And we can talk a little bit about that as we go forward as well. So if we were to take that and populate the 5 whys, then we can see it works. So if we start with we found oil in the floor. And why was that happening? I think you guys have said it was a leaking gasket above, there was a leaking gasket above the floor. Yeah. And why was that? Why was the leaking gasket? It was leaking because we had a bad gasket. And why was that? Well, it was from a batch of gaskets. It was from a batch of bad gaskets, wasn't it? We'd received a bad batch from the supplier. And the why was that you guys have shared was because, so why did we have a bad batch of gaskets? Because we chose the cheapest gasket. Yeah, lowest bid from the gasket. And the reason for that was to make cost savings, but it was a culture of cost saving, I guess, as well. And then, so we should just take the opportunity to run that up the other way as well, to go through the therefores as well. So we had a cost-conscious saving, cost-conscious philosophy. Therefore, we had the lowest bid on gaskets. We accepted the lowest bid on gaskets. Therefore, we received a bad batch of gaskets because the quality was not good of the gaskets, which resulted in the particular bad gasket that was leaking above the floor, which resulted in oil in the floor. So it works up and down as the way to, just to check. It works up and it works down. And this one doesn't split, so it hangs together through to the 5. Sorry, Marnie, you were going to go back?
I was going to move on to detection.
Yeah.
So I think we had one comment that I would put under detection back here, right? Why did maintenance continue using bad gaskets? Yeah. I think that's one possible detection.
Yeah, and it's important you start these with, the little hints on this chart here that says what got out to the customer that was not caught at the process escape point. So it just helps you key in your top line here. And so the question is, from the information we've got, have we got information on this one? Do we know why maintenance didn't continue, or maintenance continued to use bad gaskets? Do we know why they did that?
Is it because there was no follow-up test?
Quite possibly. What I'm pointing at, I guess, is we haven't actually got that information, have we, in the data that's been supplied to us. So absolutely, that would be one of the questions that you could investigate at this point. So I think when you get to this, you go back to the data provided. You've done a bit of investigation, as often the case. You've investigated it a bit. You've got some data, and then you sat maybe a day or two later looking at it thinking, I haven't got enough information here. I don't actually know, so I need to now go and talk to the maintenance team and ask them the questions about their maintenance regime, don't I? You know, there's quite a lot of different. Any idea of the sort of questions you might want to ask maintenance? So, you know, the obvious first one there is why did they continue to use bad gaskets?
I would like check their instructions, or were there any critical features that they were to look for in the gasket at installation?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the questions I think I'd be thinking about here is why did maintenance continue to use the bad gaskets? Did they even know that there were bad gaskets? Were maintenance aware it was leaking? From the information we're provided, it sounded like it'd been reported at least once before. So having been reported once before, why wasn't something done about it? So you'd want to have a think about that. Going back to the points that Bill made earlier, you know, what checks on the machine had they made? Or they made sure everything's still safe? Not just the floor with the slip hazard, because that has to be made safe, but wherever the oil's coming from, has that been made safe as well from a safety side? But I think there's a lot more information and questions that this would then lead you to want to go and ask, so you could come back and fill it out. So you don't always have all the information up front, and the process will help you think about, right, what do I need to go and ask? I need to go and ask these questions.
Sorry, so Sharon, there's another one regarding the maintenance as well, as regarding so why did they continue to use them? But is there a training or competency issue? Are people that fit in them, do they know how to fit them correctly? Is it just because it's a cheap gasket, it might not be the gasket's fault. It might be operator error when they're fitting the replacement gasket. If you've got the same fitter doing the replacement task each time, then you might be wanting to be looking at the fitter, not the gasket.
Yeah, and
so that's another potential cause of the issue. But
it is, and I think it's when you work through these, it's thinking about your the training, sort of a corrective action, isn't it? So it's a treatment. So having understood what the problem is, you can then apply treatment to go train them or do whatever. But you're right, you've got to make sure you've got the right root cause first of all. The data we've supplied is quite simplistic, and it was just trying to get us to the cost element. But if you were investigating and found out actually the root cause of this was actually the gaskets were okay, but it was a fitter, then you would want to make sure you addressed that. Otherwise, you'd end up answering the wrong question, and it would reoccur again.
The one thing I want to point out, Sharon, is you and I solved these yesterday, right? And we didn't come up with this list. So that again is where more people involved, more questions. I tried to fill all this to the side because they're questions we want to ask. So we solved it the most, what we thought flowed from the storyline, but I love how it's being solved differently, which is why I'm recording what you're writing.
Yeah. And it is using that imagination to think, what else could go wrong here? What else could be happening? You know, it isn't always the obvious thing.
Perhaps the maintenance instructions are wrong.
Yeah. Or there are none, because that could happen too.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So it helps you just think about, right, what can I go have a look at as part of my quality investigation here? Should we move
I can see the comment in the chat that pointing out there is some but not found when receiving. That might be something that we can capture. I think.
Yeah, the goods inwards inspection. Why didn't it find these bad gaskets? We're going to come on to the systemic one now, because I think that'd be interesting to have a look at. So what in the system failed, because that is sort of touching goods inwards inspection, as well as thinking about some of the other things. What in the system failed that allowed this defect to happen?
Maybe the purchasing system failed because, all right, there's got to be a price level, but there's also got to be a quality level.
Yeah.
Perhaps the purchasing specification wasn't good enough to ensure adequate quality of the product.
Yeah, because nowhere in any of the information that we've been provided with does it touch on a quality specification at all. So I think one of the first things you'd want to check is that there is one. That is there a minimum quality specification that these products can be made to?
Agreed. Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's not mentioned anywhere. And if you don't have a specification, maybe it's a very low cost part. Maybe this is like a standard part or something, but then you're genuinely going to go for the cheapest one, which could be a bit of a disaster. There's an interesting thing, isn't there, between they were asked to come up with the lowest cost solution, not the lowest cost gasket. And the lowest cost solution is for me, is a quality product that doesn't cause you problems. It's not the cheapest part that does cause you problems that you're going to have to pay for, because, you know, so it's the total cost that's important, not the piece part cost. It's confused.
Definitely, if it's continuously causing you downtime, it's not a cheap product, is it?
No, but it might seem like that to someone in purchase. So you're right, the purchase procedures policies need a look at to see why is our system not protecting us from this sort of failure? Why is the system, either the purchasing methodology or our quality specifications, not helping us? And I think we haven't actually got enough information, have we? So we're creating a list of questions here that would say, right, we need to go and have a look at what does the company's quality system, the quality management system, say they should do that maybe they're not, you know? So is there a non-compliance here that even if you go for the cheapest option, your minimum quality standard should apply? So the quality system, the quality management system, is maybe the issue at hand.
Yeah, it's cost of poor quality.
Yeah, and as you will all know, that can be quite high, can't it? Many times the piece part price, for sure. So many times the piece part price. So yeah, we haven't. So in terms of have we got enough information to do this properly, in terms of systemic, we haven't. But I think what it helps us do is think about, if we were in this situation, what would we then? Where would we direct the quality investigation next, to go and ask some questions of check some of the quality system requirements, talk to the purchase departments, and then understand what's been missed. Anything else that anyone wants to add on this one? Anything, Marnie, from your side?
I think we've caught it all, right? I've got questions to continue asking, but I think everyone's come down the route of cost versus quality, right? How did we get where we are?
Yeah, from the chat as well. Yeah.
And what about inbound inspection to check the process, if that could have been detected at inbound?
Yeah, and I think that's part of your quality system check is what else in the quality system failed. So it might be bigger than just the purchase policy. It could be there's an inspection set of steps here that's part of our assurance model that's failed.
I think there's not really much to do when it comes to this kind of part, because it could be just a visual check, but you can't tell if it's going to work in the end of the day, because it has to be placed in an actual machine.
Yeah. But it's the sort of question you can quickly discount it once you get to know. If we knew what the product was, because this could be a very simple gasket, or it could be a quite complicated one, we don't know. But you can discount that once you've got that little bit more information. But it's the right thing to capture it, because it'll help you work out what you need to do next. No, good. Thank you for that, and hopefully that was a useful example just to help work through.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. From my point of view, maybe the roles in the organization are not clearly defined, because is the financial manager the person who can fix what kind of gasket is to be organized? I mean, there should be a role in the organization who can define the requirements for the gaskets, and then maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Again, as part of the company's quality system, the quality management system should define who can make key decisions, and how those decisions are made, and what's the steps, and did this bypass those? Was it a confusion because they were focused on cost? But yeah, it's a good question to ask, because it could be that they've the roles sometimes can become blurred in different organisations, and they might need redefining. That could well be a part of a set of actions that would have to be established. No, it's a good one. It's fascinating what people think of and all the different elements that could come out of this. I think I'll draw a line though, because a line under this one now, because we've only got so much information, and if this was in real life, we'd go off now and ask a load of questions, understand the answers, and then that would direct us to come back and help us fill in the 5 why. Okay, Marnie. How are we doing for time, Marnie? Are we still good?
We are at 9 o'clock, so we could pause here and just leave this as a blank one. We could send it out solved. We could continue solving and answer. So I think we should ask people what they want to do. Do you want to solve the last case, or do you want to do some question and answers? We got about 30 minutes left.
So what's your thoughts, folks? We've got one more. It's a fairly straightforward one, Bob and the flat tire, but we can give you this as an example, and we can give you the worked answers to it as well. We can do it together, or we can open up and just let people ask some general questions about 5 whys and its application.
I would say let's do the last one.
Okay, yeah. Everyone happy with that? Anyone not? Shout up, and we'll just go into the last case study then.
Just work through this one, Sharon, and see what the differences are between the two examples.
Yeah.
Be good.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So this one's called Bob and the Flat Tire, very imaginatively titled. So this one, we've got one morning, Bob opened his garage to get in his car to go to work, and he noticed that the driver's side tire was flat. So he jacks up the car and he pulls the tire off and he puts on his spare. Coming home that evening, he again parks his car back in the garage. So the next morning, yet again, Bob prepares to go to work and is greeted with yet another flat tire on the driver's side front tire. Luckily, he was able to get a ride in by a friend who also helped Bob pick up the original tire at the car repair shop where he dropped it the day before. When Bob picked up the tire, the mechanic showed him the nail. He ran over that. Sorry, basically, Bob picked up the tire, and the mechanic at the time showed him the fact that there was a big nail in it. Right, so he's got a nail in his tire. After he got dropped back off at home, he starts the process all over again of swapping his tire out for his spare. He jacks his tire up, he pulls the tire off, and he notices a nail was the cause of the flat again. So Bob looked on the garage floor and noticed a sprinkling of nails, exactly like the one the car mechanic had showed him. Bob starts to wonder how all these nails got on the floor to begin with. He then notices a box containing the nails, and it sits on a shelf above the workbench that is positioned in the back of the garage, on the side he parks his car on. Bob continues his investigation and notices the box containing the nails that fell onto the garage floor had a tear and water stain. There was no source of water anywhere near the box, so he's a bit puzzled. As he looked around, he looked up and he noticed the roof of the garage, and he saw another water stain on the roof of the garage. Bob pulls out the ladder, climbs up on top of the roof, and notices that some of his shingles are missing. He suddenly remembers that the neighbour's tree was struck down recently during a lightning storm, and a major branch had come down and struck the top of his garage at that time, just in the spot where they've got the missing shingles. So Bob starts to realise that when it rains, the rainwater must be leaking through his roof enough to damage the box that contains the nails, which has caused a tear in the box, allowing the nails to drop onto the floor. So that's the little story. That's the information we've got. So if we think about, first of all, the generation root cause, and we think about our 5 whys for that, if Marnie can assist by highlighting some text again as we go through. So what, first of all, what is happening here that shouldn't? So that's the first question you should ask yourself when you're doing a 5 whys for the generation point. So what's happening here that shouldn't? It's in the title.
Why are the tires being flat?
He's a flat tire.
Flat tire.
Flat tire.
Yeah. So sorry, you know, some of this is quite obvious, but yeah. So what's happening that shouldn't is, so the very top of our 5 why we're going to write flat tire, basically. So, and then we ourselves. So why did we have a tire? And if you guys can help out shouting out, and Marnie will underline as we find a different element.
Nails.
Yeah. So it was nails. Why had a nail caused the flat tire? Nails are quite benign normally, aren't they, when they're in the right place?
Yeah.
Why had this nail caused the problem?
Because it was on the floor in the garage.
Brilliant. Yeah. So the next why. And it's interesting, you know, I know this is very simple, but the temptation sometimes is to run right through to the end. And what I would advise you is when you're doing a 5 why, do try and keep it like noddy, like keep it simple like this, that one step at a time, because it's really easy to go, I can see the answer and jump to the end, and that's often where people.
You've frozen, Sharon.
Okay, I'll jump in while we're waiting for Sharon to unfreeze. So what's Y3 then? So we have nails on the floor as 2. How did the nails get on the floor?
Due to a leak in the garage roof.
That's definitely one of the. It's definitely in the chain. But
the box of nails with a hole in.
Yes. Yeah. So nails got on the floor in the causal chain. It's because the box had a hole in. And you say, why did the box have a hole in? So it's got this water stain on it, hasn't it? So then I don't know who made a comment about the leaky roof. Someone made a comment about so the box has got a tear and a hole in because of, yeah. Is that the root cause?
No.
Do you want to help me? So why did we have a water stain? So this is so we're at the 5th why, but we could keep and it isn't the root cause yet. So let's ask another one. Why did we have the water stain?
Damaged roof.
Yeah, the shingles were loose, weren't they?
The shingles.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Is that the root cause? We ask it. If we go, maybe not. Let's ask one more why. So why was the missing shingles?
Because the tree hit the roof.
Branch.
Yeah. So a branch had hit the roof. Now, interestingly, are we now at root cause, do you think? Or is there perhaps one more?
Well, lightning strike.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. So Man and I were debating how deep you go with this one, because that's something you can't control, but necessarily. But yeah, so actually, you know, we've just worked through. We've got down 8 steps here, so 8 things that have gone wrong, all of which can have treatments against them. Each of those steps might have something addressing each one, but the one to make sure it doesn't happen again is the ones right at the bottom here. So, so we had a major branch come down and struck the top of the garage because of a lightning strike. Okay, do we want to put that into the 5 whys, Marley, or should we just move into the next one? I'm just thinking for time.
If people are okay with it like this, I'm fine with leaving it like that. I think we've demonstrated what we wanted, which was you can go more than 5, right? And we, should check those therefores. We can even do that here. The one I would note here, right? If the box was in a different place in the garage, the nails might not have got where they were near the tire. So we might have missed one here. The shelf above the car. Right? So if you checked your therefores, you might need to add that one in. But
yeah, because yeah, it has to be above it to cause the tires a problem, doesn't it?
Right. It has to be near where the tire is. But that, I am fine with leaving that off.
We could fill it in, but yeah, I think you guys have got the hang of. We would fill it in really simply, and I'll read out. So we've got a nail in the tire because the nails were on the floor. Oh, sorry, I've got a call coming. The box was broken. Why? Because it had water damage. Why? Because there was a mark in the ceiling where water had leaked. Why? Because the shingles were loose. And why? The next why is because a tree had hit the roof. And why? Because we'd had a lightning strike. So I think that helps us work through. So what had actually happened here? So if we go to detection, yeah, let's have a look at the detection one and ask ourselves. What got out to the customer that was not caught at the process escape point? This is an interesting one as well, because the customer here being the driver of the car, Bob.
There, I'll help start it, right?
Thank you. Yeah. So an issue here is the customer, there's a nail in his tire in this case. So that's what's happened to the customer. He's got a nail in his tire. Why was the condition not detected? And this is an interesting one, isn't it? From the information we gave you, did we give you enough information to be able to answer that one?
You arrived late at work, didn't you, an hour? So that was right at the beginning, wasn't it? Then he saw that he had a flat tire, which caused him to be late an hour getting to work.
Yeah.
Did he focus on just fixing the tire rather than looking what caused it? So it didn't put any, in effect, he didn't check the garage when he went back into it again. So maybe he was just so fixated on fixing the tire to get to work that he didn't check for what had actually caused the puncture.
Yeah. And you can see what people would fall into that, wouldn't you? Because you wouldn't necessarily assume that it was caused in your garage. You might think it was on the road to work. You'd driven over something, or so the first time around he didn't look. And you ask yourself why didn't he look for a cause? Well, the answer is he just fixed it, didn't he? He didn't do any. He just didn't. Yeah, he was rushed. He didn't do any investigation. It didn't occur to him. There might be more going on here. So he rushed to get to work, and then we don't know Bob. We don't know what his background is, whether he's got any problem-solving experience or tools that he's, we don't know whether he's got any of that. So again, he's probably not trained in doing any of this stuff. there was another way we looked at this one when we looked at it, Marnie, and we thought, so the nail in the tyre, and there's something also about maybe tied here to FOD, isn't there? You know, just checking your garage floor from time to time to make sure it's free of debris. And if you think about our aerospace shop floors, we all have FOD controls and checks to make sure things are clear, and then we don't have nails lying around the place. Now, this was a domestic garage.
So in terms of 8D, the format of 8D, he didn't perform permanent preventative measures.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. There was no preventative maintenance here for his garage.
Where was his containment?
Well, it's a really good point. There was none. His containment. He contained his containment to replacing the tyre only. He didn't think about the wider environment that his product was in. And again, we might draw, you might all draw thoughts to examples you might have looked at in the past as well. So it is quite a good example. We've got to be careful not just to fix the immediate problem. You've got to think about the environment and the systemic pieces as well. So we're kind of moving into more the systemic piece, I think, aren't we, on this one now, Marnie? Yeah. So what in the system failed allowing the defect? And that might be touching on some of the comments you guys were just making there. So what in his household domestic garage system failed that allowed the defect?
Location of where the nails were above the car.
Yeah, so you can maybe do one on that. There's a couple of other things that you might look at as well. So at this top level, what other things were happening? So there was location of nails. There was stuff going on with the roof, wasn't there? Or not going on with the roof. If you think back to our root cause, we ended up with the tree hit the roof, and there was a lightning strike that led to a tree hitting the roof. So was there opportunity at that point when the lightning struck and they had his neighbour's tree come down to have avoided all of this?
Presumably, he saw the branch on the roof, so he must have removed it. So you'd think he would have checked the condition of the roof at that stage.
Yeah, and we haven't got that information, but I think that's the sort of thing you would want to you'd want to ask yourself: was it, did I check the roof, or did we just clear the root? Did we just get the branch off? Did we actually check for damage? We don't know from the information we've got, but that's what we'd want to check. Because at that time the shingles were damaged and it was letting the water come in at that point. So there is a point there where this all could have been avoided. And there's another one around roof condition as well. And because it's a domestic garage, it's a little bit of a stretch, isn't it? But how often do you all go check the roofs of your house, or check for leakage in your house? And it goes back to the whole preventative maintenance thing. It's like in a domestic setting, it's not as robust maybe, but in a factory, you'd expect that there was a regular routine of preventative maintenance where they're looking at conditions of things, and certainly if there's any leakage, you'd expect them to be spotting that really quickly. Could be forgiven a little bit in a domestic setting for not quite having the same controls in place. Anything more on this one then? I'm hoping it's helping you think all the different elements, and by splitting them out, it allows you to work through. So the location of nails, you could work out a 5 why about why did he have the nails where he did, and it would get you some answers. But you could also look at why was the roof condition not detected? Why did he not have a maintenance schedule in place, and work through those. But being as thorough as you can, you're more likely to eliminate this thing from reoccurring in the future. Any comments, Marnie? Anything you want to add at the end of this one?
No, I think, as you said, it's meant to get you thinking, right? very simple problems that everyone could relate to try to walk through the process, right, of asking the questions, asking investigation questions, and hopefully this has been effective for people to practice.
Yeah, I'm just checking the comments then. Someone said no 5S in place. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
No periodic check in the garage. Yep. Yeah. So were these useful for you? We will, the pack, you've got a pre-read selection of the pack, but the pack will go out afterwards, Marnie, yep?
Yes, that is the plan. I'm going to try to save it. If it doesn't save, I may have to rewrite it a little. But I'll go back to the recording to try and get the words exact as close as possible to it so that we can share. I'm going to see if there's a way that I can save here.
Okay. And whilst mine is doing that, any questions from the wider team? I know as we were chatting, there was at least one of you volunteered to support at some of the SMIGs in the future, which is great. And just a reminder of these integration groups are cross-industry. They're made up of a number of different companies coming together, sharing ideas and really trying to help us all tackle common problems, because seeing poor root cause is something I see internally and externally every day, and anything we can do to help across industry improve our standard of root cause analysis and is really important. And ultimately it's really important for aerospace safety, because that's what we're most focused on. Why does it help aerospace safety as well? If we've got the right root causes in place and the right corrective actions in place, these things won't reoccur. So they won't actually escape out to customers and won't become bigger problems. So yeah, so I find it really useful working as part of the problem solving SMIG with my colleagues across industry. If any of you want to show an interest in that, just drop us a line, that'd be good. Any other comments or thoughts or something that you feel we've missed or we ought to consider for next time? Hopefully you found it useful and we've hit the pace. We've tried to give you a little bit of theory and some examples mixed up as well as we've gone through. So if you're able to leave a little bit of feedback in the chat, that would be really useful for us when we think about the next one as well. And there's Marnie. Hello, Marnie. She couldn't have her screen on because if she did it through the text piece out. So thank you, Marnie, and I'm sorry you couldn't put the screen on.
That's okay. I figure when Sharon and I practiced, we liked the idea of like the writing on the screen as we talk. So hopefully that was a feature you liked and that we could do that. Did anyone I'd be curious, did anyone take advantage of the pre-package?
I had a look through it.
So, I downloaded it and printed it.
Yeah, because we're trying to make it a little bit more interactive, and it's always a challenge. So if there are any other ideas about how to do that, let us shout. Open to ideas, open for new ways of doing things as well. But we didn't want to just have presentation after presentation. Do you know what I mean? That's a bit boring.
Yeah. So. And I think this is the first time that any of the committees has tried to tackle a work together format. So we'll always accept the feedback.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time and thank you for the good interaction as well. Any comments?
Sharon, just before you go, I'd just like to say very informative. Thank you. I think if we can do another one, I don't know how other people feel, but I think another one on risk analysis, because I feel like many companies in our industry, so we're not alone. It's not just Rolls-Royce. I don't think we're a very reactive company to problems when they occur. So a lot of work on risk analysis will help us to progress across to being proactive company as opposed to a reactive company.
Okay, thank you for that.
I think it would be good if we have something on risk analysis, which I think would be really beneficial to get the mindset thinking from branching over from being a reactive company to a proactive company. Because I feel personally we don't do enough proactive stuff because we're very good at firefighting, aren't we? And that's more reactive.
So I have a question, a follow-up question on that. Would you like one where there has been a problem, i.e. we're being reactive, to convert it to proactive? So like the intersection between problem solving into risk for the next thing.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good because then you could distinguish between the two, because being proactive, you have to see with the risk analysis, the level of occurrence and the severity, that the marking that you do, it pushes your brain to think in a different way. So you're using different sides of your brain, aren't you? In a proactive sense. Yeah. So yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. That'd be really good, actually.
Yeah, because with the problem solving team, right, we are honestly more reactive, but we're trying to show how we intersect with some of the more proactive reference groups or SMIGs, right? So that would be a good one that we could maybe team up with PFMEAs to show, hey, here's the problem. Now, how do we take that to, do risk analysis on the PFMEAs?
Yeah, I mean, so when you're thinking in terms of failure modes, you just start using a different side of your brain, basically, and thinking in the event of something happening, and then you're scoring against that, the severity and the level of occurrence. So it just changes your mindset of ways of thinking. So I think that'd be really beneficial. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Do appreciate all the feedback as well. And we'll feed that back into the SMIG itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.